we're going to start from simplest to most complex. Okay. So the first topology, it's not quite what you expect it to stand for. It stands for point to point. Point to point. Okay. So it's the simplest kind of topology because you can only have it, as the name implies, when there are 2 points, 2 nodes. So here's my description. There's one node, and there's the other one. Okay, point to point, simple. Now, if you remember back to transmitting or receiving, this connection here could be a variety of different kinds. It could be simplex, only going in a single direction. It could be full duplex, which means it can go both at the same time. Or what was the other one? Half duplex, which means? Yeah, good. So send, but not receive at the same time. Okay, and from the other side as well. So that's point to point, simple. Okay. Benefits and drawbacks. Well, the first one is it's simple. As you will discover very quickly, right? And we sort of alluded to it in that video we watched with the 3D animations, that kind of thing. We tend to think, oh yeah, I request data, I ask for a web page or a video or a song to be loaded on my computer, and then the next few seconds I get it, and it's perfect, right? But actually, networks and their traffic that goes along them are much more like real networks that we think about, real traffic, right? There's collisions and problems and things that don't get to where they're meant to all the time, okay? So simplicity is a big, good thing for a network, okay? Drawback, obviously, only supports 2 nodes. Now, like I mentioned before, there's more than this, but that's just to start you off, okay? Let's keep going. The most natural next place to go is, well, what if I have more than one node, okay? So the next one is called a bus. A bus, okay? So I want more than, not more than one node, more than 2 nodes, okay? So 1, 2, 3. What is a bus? Here's a definition for you, okay? It's a common medium that all the rest of the nodes can sort of connect to, okay? So like this, 1, 2, 3, okay? Let me say that again. It's a common medium, that's what this strip along here is, which all of them can separately connect to, okay? Now it's vitally important, I'll put it as another color. It's vitally important that you do not draw your diagram like this. This is not a bus, because can you see, think about the definition. There's no common medium here. There's 2 media, and they're completely separate. Right? They're not common to all of the devices. Okay? So don't draw this. That is not a bus. Okay? This is a bus. Now that medium, it might be just a wire, a cable, okay? Or it might be a space in the terms of a wireless network. But the key is that everything goes in one spot. Okay? All right. So what's a quick advantage of that? You can often think about advantages and disadvantages in terms of the other ones and how they're different, okay? So example, you can have more than 2 nodes. Okay? What's a disadvantage? This is a common medium, right? It's a space that all of the nodes can access, all of the nodes can send data along. Okay, so what would be some problems? Okay, let me illustrate this, all right? I want you to, in a second, turn to the person next to you and just tell them how you got to school this morning. Okay, simple, okay? Ready? Just go, do it. Okay, good, that was enough. Unless you were coming really far this morning, then that was probably, I hope, enough time to get that information. Okay, let's try this again. This time, I want you not to turn to the person next to you, but find a person, look around, someone who's sort of further away, like maybe on the opposite side of the room. Make eye contact. I want you to make eye contact so that you know who you're talking to. Ready? If you got someone, do like some cheesy thing with your eyebrows so you know who you're talking to. And I want you to tell them exactly the same thing. Are you ready? Set, go. Oh, hi Samuel. How did you get to school this morning?
Perfectly for what we're talking about, bus.
Okay, alright, that's very appropriate. Okay, alright. Okay, now, let's come back together. Did you experience any difficulty hearing what the other person was saying? Maybe you were a bit sly, and you're like, I used charades to communicate because I'm sneaky, right? What's going on? We were all using a bus, a common medium that we all had access to transmit data. Okay, but of course the problem was all the data was in there at the same time, right? We call this, and you know, when you can't hear someone else because someone else is speaking to you, we call it a data collision. Okay, because the data is literally, physically colliding, right? Like in our case, the sound waves, which are vibrations in the air, they're literally just all interacting with each other, and sometimes you can't hear anything. Okay, so if you've got a common medium, you're going to have, sorry, this should really be over here. You're going to have data collisions, okay? All right. Now, that's not the only way. There are people who thought that this situation, this sucks. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Limited, I suppose, because you can imagine 3 nodes, maybe it'll be okay, right? 20 nodes, you got some problems. How about 2,000 nodes, okay, which is not that unreasonable for a school of any large size, let alone an organization which is global, okay? So, how can we solve this problem? Okay. Well, here's a solution. The ring topology, okay, a ring. As the name suggests, we're increasing size here, right? So let's go, yeah, here's a ring, right? So, whoop. Okay, so here is a ring, right? And what happens is, when computers want to communicate with each other, okay? Suppose this guy at the top wants to communicate with this guy down the bottom. You will notice he has no access to any bus, any common medium that links the two of them, okay? What he does have access to is nodes that eventually connect up to the one he wants, right? So here's what he does. He starts a message, and he puts it in something called a token. Okay. Now, in reality, these tokens are a bit like, not to be confusing, but they're a bit like buses, right? Sorry, it is, right? Or maybe I should say trains, but anyway. They go around and around, yeah, trains is better, because it says T, right? They go around and around in a circle, right? And they keep on going, whether there are passengers around or not, right? But if you're a passenger or a piece of data that wants to go along to somewhere else, you hop on the train, the token, okay? And what happens is you get passed from node to node, from station to station, until you arrive at your destination. Okay? The data knows when it's been put into the token, it knows where it's supposed to get off. Okay? Another way of thinking about it is each node knows to listen out for things which are addressed to it. Right? So the token comes along, and the computer will open it up, look at it, and say, oh, okay, this is addressed to me. I'll open it rather than passing it along to the next guy. Okay? So this is a ring network. Now again, I said you can consider advantages and disadvantages in contrast to the other systems, right? The other topologies. So what do you think is the key advantage here? Yeah, not just less data collisions, no data collisions. No data collisions. At least if the network is working as intended. You see, that's the difference between the bus and the ring. If the bus is working perfectly, you're still going to get data collisions, right? But if the ring is working perfectly, there shouldn't be any. Okay. So that's great. That's a big plus. Okay. But that advantage comes at a cost. What kinds of costs can you think of? Yeah.
Slower.
It's way slower. Well, slower question mark, right? Because it sort of depends. Number one, on how big your network is, right? I've just got 5 nodes here, but if I had 500, it would take a while, right? So number one, how big your network is. Number two, who you want to send your message to. Okay. So on the bus, whoever you're sending to, right, your message will arrive at more or less the same time. But in the ring, if you're very far away around, right, or if you happen to be next to, but on the wrong side of someone, it's going to go all the way around the ring to get there. Okay? Now, by the way, to solve that particular problem, some network engineers have designed what's called a double ring network. So Like, but not to be confused with a double rainbow. A double ring means you've got two rings, but what's the difference? They go in opposite directions, okay? Because that way, right, if you're this guy, you're not stuck waiting to get your message from this guy. It has to go all the way around, okay? You can actually go directly. So the worst position you could be here is not on the wrong side of someone, but on the opposite side. Okay, so if it was a network of 500 computers, it still have to travel through 250 one way or 250 the other way. Make sense? Okay. So slower, question mark. Any other problems you can think of? Jack? Ah, okay, so let's think about this. I'm going to give this a name, and then I want you to try and understand why this is the name. I'll give you the proper name. It's called low redundancy. What does that mean? We've talked about redundancy before. What does redundancy mean? Redundancy. Your mum comes home or your dad comes home and he's like, oh man, I just got made redundant at work. But they paid me out, you know? What does that mean? What's he talking about?
They're not needed anymore.
Not needed. Yeah, that's right. Unnecessary. Redundant means unnecessary. Okay? Like saying ATM machine. Saying the machine is redundant. You don't need to do it, right? So redundancy in an information system, far from being a bad thing, tends to be a good thing, right? Because that means that if something breaks down, it's okay. I've got a spare, right? So redundant is a bit like saying spare. You've got a spare tire, you've got a redundant tire. It's just sitting there doing nothing until you need it. So Jack's suggestion was, if one of these computers gets busted, like say this one, okay, and I just have my single ring going around, okay, what happens to the tokens as they travel? Well, they get to this one, and every single one will fail, right? So one breakdown means the whole network is gone, okay? If you've got a double ring, what would happen? Well, you'd still have problems, right? Things might be slower, okay? Because they have to go the long way around rather than the shortest way, okay? So low redundancy. Now, there's one big one that we're missing. It's more of a social and ethical issue, I suppose. But I wanna mention it now before we leave off. Yeah. That's right. In fact, interception also almost implies intentionality or skill. Like in touch football, if you want to intercept another player's pass, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be quick, right? But in a ring system, no skill is required to make an intercept, right? You just have to sit there and do your job. It'd be a dream for me, right? It'd be like standing there and the other team just passes you the ball. It's like, thanks, okay, off I go now. What's going on? Remember I said, okay, this token, which has your data on it, passes through every single node between you and your destination, okay? So there's major problems in terms of the safety of your data, the security of your data, right? So that means you've got to encrypt things, or you've got to assume that everyone on the network is not going to, misuse your data, okay? So that's a security issue. Okay,